Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Coach Timmy, and if you enjoy the content today, make sure you hit like and subscribe. So today we'll be going over X-Sweeze, the guy who won 3 games in a row on the EU servers Solo Cash Cup, and going over how he won these 3 games in a row and sort of break down taking height, a few more interesting things. So if you like the videos, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. Alright, we're on to win 2, 10 kills. Alright, so he's hard contested, but he's got some really decent loot here. Holy fuck. Look at this. Alright. So like I said, I wasn't entirely convinced by his first game, so I'm looking for him to show me that what he does is replicable from game to game to game. This game. Alright. So second zone pulls again. He's got 2 peppers. 2 peppers is huge. Having 2 peppers is super nice. Like I said, so we don't have any movement. We don't have any movement in this current meta, so we're looking for anything that changes the way that you move in a positive way. So if you get a speed increase, that makes it better. If you can play back zone and not have to move with the masses, essentially remove yourself from the entire rotation pool, even better. So that's why floppers are so powerful in non-movement metas. So you've got a couple of things to consider in a no movement meta. I think either floppers. Harpoons, you don't have to force refreshes, can be good, but it's not as consistent as peppers. Because with peppers, you can basically play like, solo tarps, but pretty spaced out. But yeah, no movement metas are interesting. I'm really interested to see how the rest of the season plays out in terms of solos. All right. So as he takes another mid-game fight here, which, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of. Unless it's like off a huge crack or something, or a third party or something like that, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think it's a blue pump. And so this is what I was thinking about. So in terms of time wasting, this is perfect. So, like in a no movement meta, where a lot of the time you're not searching for loot, like you want to maximize the loot that you have. Having time to just sit in a box or in a cone, this is perfect. You're wasting time. You're taking yourself out of what I just called the rotation pool. Basically, not letting anyone near you take tags on you. Get rid of your shield. He's wasting time. He's doing it perfectly. So he's not putting himself out available for damage. That's really important in solos. When you can make sure you conserve whatever shield you have. He's only got one shieldfish. You don't want to have to waste that on stupid rotation where you're not going to necessarily find anything that betters your loot. What might he get? Maybe a couple big pots, but you need to be looting a pretty decent amount of area to be picking something like that up. So again, you see how grouped people are around him here. Rotating out of this would be pretty tough. Yes. All right. So the only way I can really look at the map is by kind of going drone free. And then flying over this way a little bit. So if I go all the way out. So there's no one over this side. Dead side's dead. Dead side in Europe is always really dead because they didn't really learn about it until fucking yonks. Like, they didn't learn about it until really recently. And then even then, a lot of people don't actually know how to implement it. They know, okay, that side is dead side, but by the time they go to rotate there, they're kind of caught up in congestion. Even the top players don't actually know how to find themselves on dead side a lot of the time. In Solo Cash Cups, dead side is almost imperative for consistency. Because if you find yourself, especially in Europe, you're going to find yourself in amongst this a lot of the time. And if you get a zone, the reason dead side is so powerful, by the way, the reason dead side is so powerful is because what you want to do in any scenario is risk mitigation. You want to make sure that the worst case scenario is dealt for. Okay, so if you get a zone that pulls all the way over here, the reason you want to be on dead side is because it makes that rotation really easily. If you're over here, if you're on dead side, and a zone pulls all the way over there, that's actually not that bad a proposition because you know that rotation is relatively free. You can walk through the edge relatively untouched, but the other way doesn't work as well. Okay, so going from congested side to dead side, if you're on congested, is difficult because you've got so many people rotating with you. Going from dead side to congested, not so hard because you're rotating with no one else. Not no one, but less people. So this is to be expected on Europe. They don't generally play dead side. I think, and again, I think a lot of that is because they only learned about it recently, and a lot of them still don't know how to actually get to dead side safely. And see, this is what I'm getting at. Okay. So there is some luck here, because again, I hate to say this, but I'm not convinced just yet, because if zone pulls, not even saying it pulls far, but if zone pulls to, like, if I go up here, even if zone goes to here, I'm not convinced he makes this rotation out very easily. Okay? But he pulls zone literally on his head. Alright? Like, the first win that we watched, I'm not convinced it can be replicated. Second game, I'm starting to feel the same thing. Because look at, that is literally on his head. And yes, of course, there's always RNG to solo tournaments, but you know, that's huge. Pulling that zone there probably stops him from dying. Alright, we'll 4x this because he's pulled zone, so he's just going to go up and waste some more time. So he clears himself a bit of space, which is a good idea. He's still got good mats. So he makes a half-half rotation really easily. With peppers, let's just say, so like, any item that adjusts movement, speed, movement in general, is going to be so not broken, but is going to be so powerful this season. So peppers, floppers, if people want to do it, the dub. All right, so he's not going to be playing height this game. Or maybe he will. We'll wait and see. But remember, one of the main reasons I said I wasn't convinced by his game last game was because he pepper rushed height, and I don't think he can do that from game to game. So this is why peppers are so broken, because you can essentially recycle and never be in sorry, it's going to give me epilepsy. You can essentially recycle and never be in danger of dying. Because you're moving so fast, you can basically phase anyone who wants to try and catch you, you're too quick for them. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get caught while peppering. Maybe, I might be wrong by that, but while you're peppered, you're very difficult to catch. But you essentially just recycle all of this and use minimal builds. You take very minimal stuff. Easter eggs. Easter eggs are not good to use late game unless you're using them in combo or something. Picks up his first refresh there, playing nice and safe for the second. He isn't even worried about that. Look at that. Really good focus there. So he knew what was important. A lot of people, I guarantee you 99% of people, not 99, guarantee you 90% of people in chat there would have followed that kill. I promise you that. He knew what was important. What was important to him was getting those mats, getting that pump, getting the cabbage, and then getting back ahead. Following that kill would have been a huge mistake. His priorities are really good. Still got his pepper popped. So just solo tarping. Can recycle a little bit. He isn't having a full build until he gets to like more into the open territory. In a really nice spot, looking low for kills. Now, second moving is the best time to take height in solos. Why? Because that's generally where people forget to stay ahead. So, especially if you've got a pepper popped in second moving, like on the transition from first moving to second moving, that's always the best time to take height because people are distracted. They're not aware of where zone's going and they're a little bit slow to get back ahead. This is to the person on height. So it's really easy for you to sprint ahead. If you've got a pepper, even better, you can sprint ahead, basically solo tap ahead, tap, turn around and look to pressure height. Again, it's the idea of putting horizontal damage down. So if the guy on height's up here, if you put horizontal damage down on him here, his response is to go higher, at which point you can shoot him out. If he taps directly over you, you can shoot him down. Basically, as soon as you're putting horizontal damage down on a guy where zone's coming towards you, you've got the upper hand and you're most likely going to take height. So from where he is, he's going to have height here really easily. So the height theory there is really good. Basically, tap ahead and second moving on the transition where someone's distracted or where, in this case, they're getting height taken off them. Not a free kill, but he picks up an easy kill. And from there, it's going to be retention with with an RPG, which, like, if you can't retain with an RPG, you need to get your head sorted. So, we've got some invisible builds, but that's okay. Like, I mean, again, I'm much more convinced by this in-game theory. I'm still not convinced on mid-game, but the in-game is solid. The in-game was tap ahead on second moving, look for height, and then he did get gifted with a gold RPG from one of those guys he killed. But I still think the in-game theory in this game is much better than what we saw in the last one, where it was pepper rush height on a guy who's not looking at half-half, basically. Little beam. Chases up on that kill. Nice and easy finish for him. 4 peppers. Holy shit. 4 peppers is mad. In solos this season. Another nice zone for him. Pulls it sweaty. Nothing wrong with a nice sweaty pull. Shits on a raptor. Freebie. Alright, let's see how he rotates. It's about the idea of wasting time. So, essentially, taking yourself out of the rotation pool. Making sure that it's basically not impossible, but you're reducing the potential for fights and for damage taken on rotation in solo cash cups. So this would be, I wouldn't force any rotation here. I'd be looking to play to dead side. I'd be looking to box up, farm out something if I'm low on a certain type of mat. Like basically, like I said, take yourself out of the potential damage pool. So we're on win 3 of 3 here. So we've reviewed his win 1 and his win 2. And again, I'm not sold on his mid game. I'm still unsure about what his general theory is. So we'll see. We can see, and again, that like if you don't play in EU, don't take a lot of this grouping into account. EU special with the way it groups because it didn't have practice for so long. So you tend to see these huge groups in central areas of first zone and second zone as people just try to rotate straight to center. And because they played a lot of zonal scrims, a lot of the time people are basically not running directly next to each other, colluding sort of thing. But a lot of the time people do just rotate next to each other, jump and look at these sort of high tier lobbies in EU. There is a big difference there. So less people playing to dead side, more trust on rotation between players. All right, so this is what I was talking about. This is him wasting time. So I'm more sold on this idea here. To be fair though, we did see him do this in game 2. But what I'm not sold on is the idea of him not playing a dead side in solo cash cups. That's I know dead side's kind of like a bit of a meme at this point, but particularly in solo cash cups, it's really powerful because you want to try and reduce the amount of engagements and the amount of potential damage you take in solo cash cups. So he's going to play to this edge here in third. And now I'm actually totally fine with this. Now, you know, just talking about dead side, this one's okay. Where he is at the moment's okay because what you've got to remember is that he's got a river that takes him down here. So he can rotate to any zone throughout this third zone for fourth relatively easily. He can take the natural path. And shooting someone in the water, you don't tend to be very accurate. He has peppers too. You generally don't want to use peppers in mid game. He does have 4 of them, so like if I was coaching him, I wouldn't be worried about him using a pepper at this stage either, and especially a pepper in water with the right kind of flow path it's so fast, it's basically impossible to do damage to. And I feel like he's scoping that out and going, yeah, I can move anywhere. All right. So again, I like how he's fine with waste. He does pop a pepper. Takes edge. Still got decent mats. And again, with 4 peppers, I'm super confident in him getting to next zone safely. And not necessarily like not having taken damage, but he's going to get into next zone with decent heals going into late game. He's going to have at least 4 minis going into next zone, which is going into late game, which is pretty decent. Alright, so he sees Andelix get a kill there. He's pretty happy playing passive here. He just creates a little bit more space for himself. So I'm much more sold on that mid game than I was on his last ones. Particularly the issue with the last couple ones was essentially being happy to move with the masses and not doing something about, you know, trying to clear congestion. But in this one, he was aware of what was around him, I'm pretty sure. Like, I think he was happy to take the river if he had to, if zone pulled far. So much more sold on this game, and I think this is 100% replicable from week to week. Pulls half-half, of course, you got to have some zone RNG luck there. That's fine. And like I said, I actually think pulling half-half in this situation doesn't do anything, because I think his half-half rotation is totally fine. He's got peppers and he's got the river. So I don't see him taking a ridiculous amount of damage making the next rotation. I feel like he might take one tag, and at that point you just hope for a siphon. So basically what I'm saying is I'm totally sold on his mid game here. I totally understand everything that he's done, and I'm going, okay, yeah, I see that being replicable from game to game, because that's essentially what you want in a solo cash cup. You want strategy that you can apply to every single game across weeks. So you want to have your fundamentals down, and then you just adapt that to the meta. So this is what I was thinking about earlier, about using spear mats to rotate into first moving instead of basically building his big base. That's what he did in first game. Pops his pepper. Playing low ground, pops up. Okay, we'll slow this down to 1x. Really aggressive on his refresh here. That's huge. Now, a lot of people aren't aggressive enough on their refreshes. Let's run that back, because I think that's a really important point to make. A lot of people, particularly on first moving, will play super passive, not look for their refreshes. First moving is actually when you kind of want your refresh, because second moving, third moving are entirely dependent on how many mats you have, and the smaller the zone gets, the more RNG your refreshes become, right? Because there's more stuff that isn't yours. It's more about how good your aim is. But in first moving, you still have the ability to sort of control your own space, to find your own layer, call it layer establishment. You can still establish your own sort of layer. And when you hit someone for 128, you should really be chasing that. And he doesn't fuck around. He understands that when you get presented an opportunity, you hit a guy for 128 on a moving zone, he doesn't mess around. And I think people will see that and go, you shouldn't be jumping in. But in this season, I think once you've hit someone for 128, if you're confident, you just got to go. Especially, like, when I say this season, I'm not meaning about the primal, not meaning about the pump. I'm meaning about no movement. I'm meaning about having no movement. If you don't get that refresh at some point, you really need to make sure that you're finding a way to, like I said, with peppers, harpoon, floppers, to take yourself out of the rotation pool. Or you find your refresh. At this point, his refresh has presented itself. He hits someone for 128 and he chases it hard. So I'm not worried about the primal. I'm not worried about any of that. If you hit that guy and you're confident, you got to fucking go for it. No movement is huge. Having no movement is really influential on how you should be playing and how you should be looking for your refreshes. If you're aggressive on that, I'm confident in a player who's confident about getting his refresh. And especially in a no movement meta. That's essentially what I'm getting at. Good layer changes. Moves up. Again, I talked about it a couple days ago. 2 degrees of separation. He sees a guy next to him. Creates a horizontal degree of separation and a vertical. Goes up, goes across. Staying aware of people above him. Making sure no one's coming in. Maybe looking for potential as well. A lot of the time you'll see people looking for refreshes by shooting people down. The zone pulls. And again, look at his focus there. So we just talked about being aggressive for your refresh, but there's a time and a place for everything. Okay? That's not the time and a place. Zones just popped. That's when you really need to be thinking, okay, I need to get back ahead. And remember what we talked about. Second moving is actually the time you can be taking height as well, right? So people are fighting on height. Let's see if he looks for height here. Perfect, right? Run straight ahead of zone. Transition to second moving. Has height for free. Generally, you see it, what Tragix is doing is exactly how I have people take height. Sprint ahead in second moving, but he's not even looking for it. Tragix actually had the opportunity there to take height. Tragix could have taken height, I think. But he wasn't being aware enough. I really think Tragix could have had height there, actually. But essentially, our man X-Squeeze transition to second moving while people are focusing on other things, either catching up to zone to make sure it doesn't get taken. You know, he's boosted ahead. He's created a bit of a different angle, and he's had height again. So 3 games in a row where he's taken height with peppers. We may be seeing something come up consistently there. Alright, and again, so this time he doesn't have an RPG. So the last 2 games he's been on height, he's had RPG. So in terms of his consistency, he's gonna have lost that you know, consistent weapon for height retention. So now it's just all about making sure he pressures anyone off who's creating any danger for him. So it pulls back to his left. He gets a nice zone there. That zone pull is really huge. Serhat racing around a dead zone. So basically, it pulling back across all builds there is actually huge for him. Not gonna lie. This Nay guy Chris is really making things tough for him. But let's see how he gets his last couple of kills, because he does end up with getting 3 more kills. But I was saying putting horizontal damage down is really important. But it looks like he's pretty happy with just shooting straight down. There's not much he can do because it's going back across old, particularly hard map builds. There's a lot of metal in there. So it's just basically about pressuring. Now, another thing to think about when you're pressuring people, if you're pressuring someone, you might not get the kill, but in forcing them to take notice of you, you might be forcing them into other engagements. So, like I said, you might not necessarily get the kill, but you actually might be clearing the lobby out just by putting pressure on. So particularly in these sort of like last final zone moments. So one thing, especially if you've got the ammo for it, I'm always thinking about just like constant pressure. Never let up. Just constant pressure. Comes a 1v1. It's going back across old builds, so this is a pretty tough one for either of them to win, but height does end up winning out, obviously. So really impressive. He showed, like, so in terms of what he does consistently across those 3 games, he shows a really good understanding about how to take height in moving zones. Again, I'm not entirely sold on mid-game. I think his 3rd game mid-game, what we just watched, was actually really good. But late game, his awareness of when to take height, how to take it, on the transition, making sure he's got good angles, fantastic. Anyway, there you go. That's the review. Is there anyone else who, like, I'm now thinking, do you want me to review other people? Should we end there? What should we do?